Yiji by Lu Xun, translated by Peter Rambo. The bars in Lu Xun had a different layout to other places. Curved counters faced the street, and there was always hot water ready to warm the drinks. Labourers, after their shifts in the afternoon or evening, would come in and spend 4 coppers on a bowl of wine. This was 20 years ago. Price is about 10 more now. They would lean on the bar, relax, and have a drink. If you spent 1 more coin, you could buy a bowl of salted bamboo shoots or aniseed beans to go with it. If you spent 10 more, you could get a meat dish, but most customers were peasants and they didn't have the money. Only the rich could come straight through to the side room, get their drink and a meal, and take their time with it. I was 12 when I started working at the Shenheng Hotel on the outskirts of town. The manager said that I looked too stupid to wait on the rich customers and made me work outside. Although it was easy to talk to the labourers, sometimes there was trouble. They would stare at the jug as their drink was being poured out and check the kettle to see if anything was left when you put it back. Only after they were certain that nothing was left would they relax. I couldn't water down the drinks with them staring at me, so after a few days the manager said I wouldn't be doing it anymore. Luckily, the broker who got me the job had some prestige and they couldn't fire me. Instead, I was put on the dull task of heating the drinks. I would stand by the bar all day. Even though I never neglected my work, it was always menial and boring. The manager didn't like me and the customers weren't polite. There was nothing interesting about it. Except when Yiji came in. That was always a laugh. That's why I still remember it, even today. Yiji was the only one who wore a silk robe, just like the rich while he stood around drinking. He was big and tall, he had a gaunt face, wrinkles like scars, and a matted white beard. Although he wore this robe, it was dirty and torn like it hadn't been washed or mended for a decade. He always talked in this literary jargon, half of which was unintelligible. Because his family name was Kong, some people called him Big Man Yiji, from that children's book, and that became his nickname. Whenever Yiji came into the bar, everyone drinking turned and smiled at him. Yiji, you've got some new scars! He didn't answer. He just turned to the bar and said, 2 warm wines and a bowl of aniseed beans, and started arranging his money. Everyone deliberately talked a bit louder. You must have robbed someone for it. How could you conjure such a baseless accusation against one of such stainless, pious purity? Yiji said with wide eyes. What purity? The day before yesterday I saw you with my own eyes taking a book from Her's home, and he got strung up and beaten for it. Yiji blushed, the veins on his forehead protruded. The surreptitious pilfering of books cannot be considered stealing books. Can the affairs of an intellectual be considered petty theft? He carried on with this hyperbole. What person of noble virtue can ever truly be called poor? All this pretentiousness got everyone laughing. The whole bar always cheered up. From the rumours I heard, Yiji did have some education, but he didn't pass the imperial exam or get a job. He just got poorer and poorer until he came close to begging. Luckily, his calligraphy was pretty good, and he copied books in exchange for food, but unluckily, he was lazy. He wouldn't turn up for days at a time, sometimes disappearing with the writing paper, slab, and ink. After this happened a few times, no one hired him anymore. Yiji had no choice. He began looking for opportunities to steal. But when he was in the bar, he behaved better than anyone. He was never behind on the tab. Even if he didn't have any money, he would put his debt on the chalkboard, and his name would be cleared before the month was through. After he drank half a bowl of wine, his flush faded, and the person next to him asked, Yiji, can you really read? Yiji looked at whoever was asking with disdain. Then they asked, well, how come you're not working as a scholar then? Yiji immediately wore a dejected look. His whole face turned pale. That matter is purely a concern of those schooled in the noble matter of high literature. You wouldn't understand. Now everyone was laughing. The bar was in an uproar, inside and out. At this point, even I was smiling. The manager didn't blame me. He asked Yiji questions to get everyone laughing too. Yiji knew he couldn't make conversation with the adults, so he started talking to me, the child. Have you been to school? He asked. I nodded slightly. You went to school? I'll give you a test then. How do you write aniseed as in aniseed bean? Someone who begs for food, I thought, is now giving me an exam. I ignored him and turned away. Yiji waited for a while. No, you cannot write? He asked earnestly. I'll teach you. Remember, in the future, if you want to be a manager, you must be able to compose the accounts. Secretly, I thought I was very far from becoming a manager. Also, our manager never had to put aniseed in the accounts. I laughed a little. Who needs you to teach them? I asked, feeling a little impatient. And isn't aniseed written by putting the top part of the character grass on the character for return? Yiji looked pleased. Knocking 2 of his long-nailed fingernails on the counter, he nodded. Yes. Did you know there are actually 4 ways to write aniseed? Feeling even more impatient, I stopped talking and walked away. Yiji then dipped his fingernail in the wine as though he was going to write something on the counter. But seeing that I didn't care, he sighed, disappointed. A few times, hearing the laughter and excitement, some of the neighbourhood children came and circled around Yiji. He gave every one of them an aniseed bean. After the children ate, they didn't leave, just stared longingly at his plate. Kong Yiji got flustered, covered up the plate with his hand, bowing. That's not enough, I just don't have enough. He would look at the beans again, nod his head, and say, not enough, not enough, there's just not enough, is there? No, not enough. The children laughed and ran away. Kong Yiji always entertained us, but when he wasn't there, everyone else carried on as usual. One day, it must have been a couple days before Mid-Autumn Festival, the manager was settling the accounts, going over the chalkboard, when suddenly he said to me, Kong Yiji hasn't been here for a while, he still owes me 19 coppers. I realised then that I hadn't seen him for a long time either. How is he going to come back? Someone drinking at the bar said. He broke his legs. What? The manager said. Yeah, he's still stealing. This time he lost his head. Stole everything in Master Ding's house. Who would steal from that family? What happened then? What happened? Well, first he had to write a confession. Then they beat him for half the night. Finally broke his legs. Yeah, what happened after that? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he died. The manager didn't say anything more. He just went back to slowly settling the accounts. After Mid-Autumn Festival, the autumn winds grew colder every day, and winter was fast approaching. All day I would sit by the fire wearing a thick cotton jacket. One day it was the afternoon and we still hadn't had a customer. I was sitting with my eyes closed when suddenly I heard a voice. 1 bowl of warm wine. Although the voice was indistinct, it was familiar. I glanced up, but I couldn't see anyone. I stood up and looked around. Kong Yiji was sitting under the counter looking up. His face was dark and thin. He looked completely different. He was wearing a torn jacket and his legs were all curled up. Under him was a pouch, tied to his shoulder with straw rope. 1 bowl of warm wine, he said when he saw me again. The manager stuck out his head. Kong Yiji, he said, you owe me 19 coppers. I can pay you back next time, Kong Yiji said, very dejectedly. I have money for the drink. I have money. I need a drink. The manager, unmoved, smiled. Kong Yiji, you've been stealing again. This time Kong Yiji didn't argue. Do not ridicule me, he said. Ridicule? If you didn't steal, how'd you break your legs? I fell, he muttered softly. His expression pleaded with the manager not to mention it again. At this point, a few people had come in and they were all smiling along with the manager. I heated up some wine, went around the bar and put it on the side. From his ruined jacket, Kong Yiji brought out 4 coppers. When he gave them to me, I saw his hands were covered in filth. He must have dragged himself to the bar with his hands. He finished the drink quickly, and amidst the sound of laughing, left slowly, crawling. Since that day, I haven't seen Kong Yiji for a long time. I remember, towards the end of that year, the manager took down the chalkboard. Kong Yiji still hasn't paid those 19 coppers, he said. The year after, during the next Dragon Boat Festival, he said the same thing. But he didn't say it at the next Mid-Autumn Festival, and at the end of the year, Kong Yiji still hadn't been seen. I can only suppose that Kong Yiji died somewhere, silently and alone.